Hi, this is your Hurricane Tracker video update recorded August 24th, 2011 at 5:50 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Well, we are going to give you lots of information and spend several minutes with you this afternoon regarding major Hurricane Irene. But before we get to Irene, there is a weak disturbance here in the Eastern Pacific Basin with a low chance of development, so we're not worried about that system affecting Mexico. We have another weak disturbance, Invest 98L, should not develop and it will stay out in the open Atlantic. Then we have a newly formed Invest 90L, which formed yesterday and is quickly organizing. Hurricane Center is giving it a 60% chance of developing into a tropical depression or tropical storm Jose within 48 hours. The latest computer models do show this system also staying out in the open Atlantic. So we'll keep a close eye on that one just in case things change. But let's take a look at Irene, as she is a very well developed and major Category 3 hurricane. You can see her very distinct eye moving between the forecast points almost in a straight line. So good job to the National Hurricane Center. It looks like they're right on point with the forecast as she's moving directly from a previous point to the next point. And in northwesterly fashion now, which is key. She's changed her angle of attack from west-northwest, which kept taking her closer to Florida, now to more of a northwesterly movement so she can gain some latitude and catch that weakness where the trough is coming down from the Great Lakes, which will eventually turn her north and then northeast up the United States seaboard. The latest information on Irene, just issued within the last hour, has her moving again to the northwest at 12 miles an hour. She's picked up a little bit of speed. Winds right now are sustained at 120 miles an hour right around the center. And the cone of uncertainty has been changed just a little bit. Here in the short term, it's been moved to the east, keeping the core of the winds of the Category 3 force winds just off the coast of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And I'll show you a graphic on that in just a moment. But in the long term, the Hurricane Center has actually shifted the forecast point to the west just a little bit, back closer to the East Coast shoreline. But again, it never focus on a single point. According to the National Hurricane Center, you want to look at the cone. If you are inside this cone of uncertainty from eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, eastern Maryland, Delaware, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, even here up into far northeastern New England, you have a decent chance now of being impacted by Hurricane Irene later this weekend and into next week. Who would have thought that several days ago that the track has changed from southeast Florida up to New England? It's amazing how quickly things can change with these systems. But in the short term, over the next 18 to 24 hours, major Hurricane Irene will be plowing through the central and northwestern Bahamas. Here just east of Nassau, she's forecasted to become a Category 4 hurricane. Now, based on the latest forecast track, the core of the strongest winds should stay out of the highly populated areas of Nassau and Sandy Point. Nassau, we're expecting winds of about 55 to 70 miles an hour with possible higher gusts. And for Sandy Point, a little bit stronger winds of about probably 70 to 80 miles an hour. Now, any slight westward deviation of this track or wobble could bring stronger winds to your area. And there will be water rises of about 7 to 11 feet here in the northwestern Bahamas and 6 to 12 inches of rain along Hurricane Irene's path. So it's going to be a long day or two here for folks in the Bahamas. You're under hurricane warning, so please take cover. Now, as she gets out of the northwestern Bahamas, she's going to make a very close pass here to the Florida Peninsula. And we only expect 20 to 25 mile an hour winds here along the coast. And rainfall here in Florida is only going to be on the terms of a quarter of an inch to maybe an inch or an inch and a half at best, depending upon if any thunderstorms set up here on the western side of Irene. But the strongest winds for sure are going to be a couple hundred miles to the east of the Florida Peninsula, and they're going to begin to turn north. And so that is good news for Florida, as you have really dodged another bullet this time around. I do want to stress, do not get into the ocean water or the beaches. I would not recommend any boating. Rip tides are going to be horrendous. Waves are going to be very high, and just not a good next couple, 2-3 days for boating here on the eastern Florida Peninsula. So please stay away from the waters. Now, as we get into the later part of this week, the next threat is going to be far eastern North Carolina, where there's the potential for extreme damage, 9 to 12-foot storm surges, and 75 to 110 mile an hour winds here in this red shaded area. And again, the further east you go towards the Outer Banks, the stronger the winds will be. And obviously there will be flooding rain. So if you live in Morehead City, up the coast, over the Outer Banks to Kill Devil Hills, Elizabeth City, please pay close attention to the forecast. Have enough hurricane supplies on hand to last you for several days. Check in with the forecast every few hours. And obviously listen to local authorities. Now, the latest forecast track, as I mentioned in the short term, shifted to the east just a little bit. This purple area is the core of the Category 3 storm force winds, which will be just ever so slightly off of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So that is some good news today that the track has shifted a little further east, taking the most damaging winds off of the coast. But here in the eastern third of North Carolina, it's going to be very windy. The Greensboro area, I'm only expecting about 10 to 20 mile an hour winds. Raleigh-Durham, maybe about 20 to 30 mile an hour with a few higher gusts. And then as you get further east into North Carolina, winds will be increasing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour here over the eastern part of the state. And obviously there will be tons of rain, 6 to 12 inches is forecast by this graphic over here in the far eastern part of the state. And again, as I mentioned with the Bahamas graphic, any slight deviation in the track or wobbles to the west could be a game changer here. So pay attention to the forecast very closely. Now, for you folks in the northeastern United States up in New England, this has become a very real threat. Computer models are being persistent on bringing the system up here to the northeastern United States, anywhere from right up the coast into New Jersey to a couple of hundred miles offshore of Cape Cod. This does seem to be the primary zone, which matches very well with the National Hurricane Center's cone of uncertainty that she will track somewhere within this cone. So there's a very, very good possibility some folks in the northeastern United States will be affected. Now, right now, the details based on the latest track from the Hurricane Center, you can't really see it here, but the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, you will be outside of the tropical storm force winds. Winds will be less than 40, probably more around 30, 35 miles an hour. And can't rule out any tropical storm force gusts if there's any rain bands that swirl around. For Philadelphia, right now winds would be about 50 to 55 miles an hour tropical storm force. Winds over New York City would be about 50 to 65 miles an hour here in this region. Hartford, Connecticut, winds would be very strong tropical storm force around 60 miles an hour, approaching low-end Category 1 status of 74 miles an hour. Boston and Providence, you would be in the brunt of the hurricane force winds of about 70 to 75 miles an hour with higher gusts. Category 1 hurricane would bring storm surge of 4 to 6 feet here along Long Island, the Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts coastlines. And that's if she stays a Category 1. There is still a possibility she could still be a Category 2 if she's able to remain over waters a little bit longer than anticipated. I must stress, due to the amount of people that live up here in this part of our country and the amount of property, this has the potential to be a very dangerous situation. It would obviously affect a large number of people, and damage would easily be in the billions if this scenario actually played out. So if you live in the Northeast, you're listening or watching this video, please take this very seriously. Again, we have great computer model agreement that this big, huge storm will be located somewhere in this region. We just don't know exactly where the center would go or exactly how strong she'll be. That will be determined in the next couple of days to come. And again, keep watching the forecast every few hours as these tracks can and probably will change. Now, I've been watching some of the media out of New York City. I've been hearing some people say, oh, she's not coming to New York City. We're not prone to hurricanes. Or, oh, she's going to turn out to sea to the northeast just like every other storm has done in the past and just like Earl did last year. Well, I wanted to present this graphic to the folks who would be saying that because the Northeast is in real danger of a hurricane strike later this week and into the weekend. The reason being there's going to be a strong ridge of high pressure that has consistently been forecasted by the models to stay there, maybe even be a little bit stronger than what it's showing This high pressure acts as a brick wall. This will not allow the storm to move northeast. It's going to help it stay on a northeasterly track up the coast. Now, the system that is responsible for drawing the system to the north is a trough of low pressure, which I've highlighted up here. And look at it as kind of like a gap between these two systems where I have these white lines. It's just exactly where she's going to move in that gap within that cone is what cannot be determined or forecasted at this point. All the National Hurricane Center can do is put out their best guesstimate, which is roughly along this turquoise line here. So again, if you live in the Northeast and you don't think it's coming, there's a very good chance that Hurricane Irene will be impacting the northeastern United States. And I can almost guarantee she's not going to be turning out to sea due to this strong ridge of high pressure here in the western Atlantic. So please take this very seriously. We want to end the video day with the current threat levels that we issue within our app. You can check these on the overview page. They're updated quite often. What we are advising the folks in eastern North Carolina, you're on a high threat level alert. That means that's a number 4 on the scale that we have, and that means you're at a high risk of being in the path of a tropical cyclone. You should know where all of your hurricane supplies are and be ready to execute your evacuation plans if indeed you are ordered to evacuate. Be thinking very quickly about ways to protect your home, inform family and friends, and be checking in with the forecast every few hours. And I know I'm reiterating some of this, but this is very important. The northeastern United States right now, you're on a scale of from 1 to 5, a level of 3. That's an elevated threat level. That means there's not a high chance yet, but a pretty decent chance you're going to be affected by this cyclone within the next 5 days. Make sure you have the proper hurricane supplies on hand to last you for several days. Have plans in place in case you need to evacuate and monitor the forecast very closely. Now, the next set of model runs tonight and tomorrow morning, if they're still showing the northeast threat, this will likely be upgraded to a 4, just like North Carolina would be experiencing at this time as well. For eastern Florida, we've lowered your threat level down from a 4 to a 1 based on the good news the models have given you this week. So chances of a strike are low. The key word is a strike is not likely. It's not likely you will be affected, but there will be a big, huge storm in the region. So you can never let your guard down until it passes you to the east and to the north. We'll be back probably tomorrow afternoon with another in-depth video update, or quickly if things change faster than what we're anticipating. Thanks for watching, for taking the time. We certainly hope this is a valuable resource and that these maps will help you with your decisions if you live in these potentially affected areas. Please leave us a review on iTunes if you haven't already. Let us know how we're doing. We're trying really hard to get all the latest information out to you, and we're trying to be as accurate and as quick as we can to update the information. Thanks so much for being a Hurricane Tracker customer, everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon.